graph is missing or it requires any revision, I'll do that, right? Don't worry. Okay. So today, as I said, today we'll start off with the new topic, which is market structures. Now, if you remember, we have already covered two market structures in the economic efficiency, right? So we have covered two market structures in the economic efficiency topic, market structures, right? And, but these are not, they're not two, there are more than two market structures that we'll talk about. Okay, now think about this. What is a market structure, students? So market structure, this might be a new term for you because previously I've been referring to this as the type of markets, right? It's kind of similar, but from here onwards, we will use a more specific word, which is market structure, right? So market structure is a term used to define, market structure is a term used to define how economists have classified different types of markets in categories to help us understand how different markets behave and operate. Okay, let's just think about this. I mean, a lot of these definitions that we do here might not be even asked. A lot of these definitions that we do over here might not be even asked on the exam. But the thing is, you know, it's always helpful to define a term because then it stays in your head, right? So what is market structure? Market structure is the term used by economists to classify, is the term used to define how economists have classified different type of markets and categories, right? To help us understand how markets behave, how different markets behave and operate. So that is basically what we are interested in studying in the market structures, that how different markets behave and operate, right? Out of all the markets, right, let's put it down like this. All markets classified in 4 categories help us better understand how different markets operate. Now, students, have a look at this. Now, the first one we have already talked about, and we'll talk about each one of these in more detail in this topic. So one type of market structure is perfect competition. One type of market structure is perfect competition. Then another type of market structure that we are already familiar with is monopoly, right? Where there's a single producer, you would remember. Then another type of market structure that we haven't talked about is known as oligopoly. Oligopoly. So this might be a new term for you all. And the last type is monopolistic competition. So these are the 4 types of market structures that we'll talk about, right? Perfect competition, monopoly, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, and yeah, right? Okay. Now, what we will talk about in each of these market structures. For each of these market structures, we will discuss their features and look at their graphs to better understand, right, how each one operates, right? So in each of these 4 market structures that I've listed over here, right? So for each of these market structures that are listed here, we'll talk about the features. This basically, it means characteristics. So we'll look at the characteristics of each of these market structures and look at their graphs to understand how each of these operates, right? Okay, we good on this, students? If everything is clear, we'll move on, right? So today we'll start off with the first type of market structure, which is perfect competition. A quick recap, and then we are on to our next thing. So what we have discussed so far is that what is a market? Think about this. So market has 2 in economics, right? So we are not discussing business because in business, there is a slightly different definition of the term market, right? But in economics, we know that the market is simply speaking a platform or a place. Back in the day, it was a place. It used to be a place, a physical place, right? But market is nowadays, it can also be a virtual thing. So market is a physical or virtual platform, physical space or virtual platform through which users and consumers make transactions, right? Okay, so this is what a market is. Now, in real life, obviously, there are a lot of different type of markets. Let me give you some examples so that you can better absorb what I'm saying. Think about this. If I ask you to compare, you know, the brands that are available for a product like soap, right? So just try to imagine how many different brands of soap do you know of? And then if I ask you to compare this market with the market of airline industry, right? I'm sure you must have traveled within your own countries or within, internationally, using different airlines. So if you compare the brands that are available that manufacture soaps compared to the number of brands that, or brands, yeah, which provide airline services, right? So what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Who can tell me? Right? So if we are comparing these two markets, a market where soaps are being produced and a market of airline industry, so what is one major difference that comes to your mind? Who can answer me? Yeah, any guesses?
Sir, in the soap market, there is a high level of competition, but in this
Perfect.
airline market,
Good.
there is very less competition.
Very nice. Very nice. Excellent, right? So very nice. So you have explained it in more advanced terms, but even if you would have said that, there are lesser brands available in the airline industry compared to soap market, much lesser brands in airline industry compared to soaps. I mean, that's, that's correct. But you have explained it even better that there's much more competition because there are more brands in soap industry compared to airline market, right? So exactly, these are the type of things that we'll talk about. And now to give you a quick idea that what's the reason, we'll also try to understand the reason why there are so many brands making soaps and so little brands making airline, right? Because just imagine the investment that you need, right? Do you remember when we talked about perfect competition in economic efficiency? I did mention that there are barriers to entry, right? It's not easy for a new firm to just, set up in an industry. It needs some prerequisites. It needs to satisfy some things before they can start operating. Like they have to get the investment, first of all, to arrange all the resources that they need. I mean, airline industry in itself is very expensive. It requires a lot of investment. You have to obviously buy those aeroplanes. You have to hire the crew. You have to, have contracts with all the airports in the world, international airports where you'll take your customers to, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's much more complicated. With soap, I mean, it's relatively easier and so on, right? So are you getting me what I mean over here? So today we are starting off with perfect competition. For this market structure, we'll talk about its characteristics, right? And then we'll look at the graph to understand how this market behaves, right? Okay, let's get started. So perfect competition, as I said, where there is a lot of competition, right? With many firms, right? So very simple definition of perfect competition is a market where there's a lot of competition with because of many firms, right? So that's the first thing that you need to remember. Now, what we'll do next is to list the characteristics of perfect competition, right? As I said, like what are the characteristics? What features do we need to look for? Because how will we know that this market is perfect competition or at least close to perfect competition unless we don't know that, what are its characteristics or what are its features? We can't say, right? So that's important why we are studying the characteristics, right? So the first one is, as I've already listed on top of it, many firms, right? Now I'm using the word, you have to be very particular. um, Many firms, right, in the market, right? So we are using the word many firms in the market, right? Then the second thing is, second characteristics, firms produce homogeneous, again, this is not a new word for us, Homogeneous basically means identical, right? And do you remember what example I gave you for the market of perfect competition, right? These firms produce homogeneous, identical products, right? Like agricultural products, vegetables, right? Apples, etc., for which there is no branding, right? Now have a look at this. Once the second characteristic that I've mentioned over here is that all these firms that operate in perfect competition, they're making homogeneous. Homogeneous means exactly the same, identical products. And I've already given you examples what type of markets are perfect competition, like vegetables, apples, where the product is the thing, right? So you do not know something by a brand. Brand is not that important. It's the product that you know, right? For which there is no branding, no branding. What is brand? You would know if you especially take business studies. Brand is a special name and logo and, given to a particular, to a product produced by a particular firm, produced by a product, produced by a company, right? So brand is a special name and logo assigned to the product made by a particular firm, right? So soap is the product, but if I say Lux, if I say Dove, if I say any other thing, that is basically its brand. Easy? We good on this? Right? Can we move on? Okay. Now, this being said, let's move on. Then there are no entry and exit barriers, right? So there are no entry and exit barriers, right? It's really easy to enter and exit the market. I list down entry and exit barriers in a bit, but for now you have to understand there's no entry and exit barriers. Let's in fact discuss this a little bit more. If you think of an agricultural market, right? And what we mean that if someone wants to grow vegetables, now you must have seen, I mean, this is getting really popular across the globe, that people are doing organic farming. What they do basically, if they have some, land in their homes or even some other space, right, in their garden or whatever, they start growing vegetables. Now, just imagine, it's no rocket science. All you need is some seeds. All you need is some basic understanding of when to water those plants, how much sunlight should they get, blah, blah, blah. And you can grow your own vegetables and so on. Obviously, fruits are apples and, fruits are a little more complicated because they require more space, but vegetables are really easy, right? And so on. So coming back to the point, there's not a lot of investment involved. There are no major entry barriers. Investment is not that much. You don't need anyone's, there are no legal complications involved, right? I mean, that's your right to, grow your own food, whatever, right? So there are no legal complications involved. There's no technical knowledge involved as such. So there are no entry and exit barriers, right? Then another thing that you need to know for perfect competition, that firms, now this is very important, the firms are price takers, which means they sell their output at the prevailing market price, right? So they sell their output at the prevailing market price, right? And no firm, let me also add this, and no firm can charge a price higher than that. And no firm can charge a price higher than that. Is it making sense, right? Okay. Now, what do I mean by firms being price taker? Now, we will be using two terms, price maker and price taker. Price taker basically means that whatever price is prevailing in the market. Now, what do we mean by market? It's basically the market demand and market supply. In a bit, we'll look at the graphs, right, that we did in economic efficiency as well. But if you remember that it is based on the total market supply and the total market demand. Now think about this. If there is absolutely no difference in the type of apples that are produced in any city of Pakistan, right? So then how will price of apples determined in Pakistan, right? It is only on the basis of what is the total availability of that what is the total demand. Down sloping is the market demand and upward sloping is the market supply. So based on these two things, right, so upward sloping will be your market supply, right, like what is the total supply of the goods being produced and what is the total quantity demanded. So where the two intersect, that will be your, where the two intersect, that is your equilibrium price. Are you following me, students? So that is your equilibrium price. Got it? Easy. So what I was trying to say, that this price, whatever price is being set in the market now, whether that be 100 rupees, 200 rupees per kg or whatever it is, right? That is at which you have to sell your output. So one farmer cannot, so if let's say this is the quantity of wheat, right? So no farmer can sell its output more than this, right? You would not want to sell it anything less than this, because obviously what point it has, but you cannot sell it more than this, because wheat across Pakistan is the same quality, everything is the same. So you can't charge a higher price, because then no one will buy from you, right? Easy. So that is what it means, that the firms are price takers. They take whatever price is prevailing in the market. And the last of all, consumers have complete information about the product quality and prices, right? So consumers exactly know, they have complete information, right? So I think this would be better, right? They have complete information about what? About, availability of the product, where can they find a good, and similarly, how much is the price of that good, and so on and so forth, right? So there's absolutely nothing that you can hide from them, right? Easy. Is this good? Okay, great, perfect. Can you move on? Okay, so students, let's quickly recap what perfect competition is. Many firms in the market, right? These firms produce identical products, and what type of products we are talking about? Vegetables, agricultural products like fruits and so on. And there's no element of branding. There are no entry and exit barriers. Anyone can easily enter the market. Anyone can easily leave the market. And the firms are price takers, which means that whatever price is prevailing in the market, you have to sell at that price, nothing more, nothing less. And then consumers have complete information, which means that there's nothing hidden from them. Okay, now what we're about to do next, that is very, very important. Now we are about to make the graph for perfect competition. Now here is where things get a little technical, right? So we will talk about, in perfect competition, students, we will talk about two graphs. So one would be perfect competition in short run, and one would be perfect competition in long run. By now you would know that short run is the time period when at least one factor of production is fixed, right? And long run is the time period after short run, when all factors of production are variable. This is making sense, right? So we'll talk about perfect competition. So the first graph that we're about to look at is for the short run, right? So we are about to look at the short run equilibrium of perfect competition. Now what we'll do over here, students, we will make two graphs. So this is kind of similar to what we did in economic efficiency as well. But if you could not attend that lecture today, you'll be able to understand how perfect competition graphs looks like, right? And again, one thing, as we were talking about at the start of the class as well, that the graphs are really important. I mean, sometimes A2 paper 4 examiner would say that with the help of the diagram. Then if it says that with the help of a diagram explain something, then obviously there are marks reserved for it. So out of 12 marks or 13 marks, 2 or 3 marks will be reserved for the graph, right? But if it doesn't say that with the help of a graph, then it's your own choice whether you want to make the graph or not, right? But graphs are always helpful to get extra marks, so why not, right? So on both the graphs, you will have the price slash cost. So I'm writing the price slash cost on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, you will have quantity of whatever good is being produced, right? So I'll tell you what these two graphs are. So you have quantity. Similarly, on the left-hand side, again, you have price slash cost, price slash cost, and on the x-axis, you have the quantity of the good, right? Easy. Okay. Now, the left hand graph, which is in the orange, this is for the industry. Let me write that down for you. This is for the industry. What is industry? By the way, industry is the same as the market. Industry of collection of firms that produce the same product. Industry is, students, industry is collection of firms that produce same products. And to the right of this, as I said, this is the graph for the firm. This is the graph for the firm. Right. Okay. Now let's get started. Now, first thing that you have to add on the industry graph. Now think about this, where the market demand, as I told you, where the market demand of the product is equals to market supply. Now, what do we mean? So let's assume that we are talking about wheat. We're talking about wheat market or any agricultural good or tomatoes, potatoes, whatever you want to, right? Think about. So this is the quantity of wheat on the x-axis, right? And in the industry graph, what we are seeing in this graph, right? So we are seeing that there is upward sloping market supply. Now, market supply means that it is the total supply, aggregate supply of all the producers who are producing wheat in Pakistan, right? If Pakistan is our market, if India is the market, then total farmers, what is their combined output, right, of wheat in India, that will be the market supply for India, and similarly for other countries. You got my point, right? And downward sloping is market demand. Now, what is market demand? MD stands for market demand. Market demand is the combined demand of all the consumers for wheat in Pakistan. Students, are you following me? This shouldn't be difficult, right? So market supply is the aggregate demand of aggregate production from all the farmers that are producing wheat in Pakistan, right? And similarly, let me write this definition down so that you don't forget. Aggregate means what? Aggregate means combined market supply is the aggregate supply from all producers producing a certain product in the market. Confusion? Confusion, students. And then you have market demand, which is basically, also say total, you can say combined consumers in a market. Confusion? Any confusion so far, students? Are you clear on this? Is this making sense to you all, right? So market supply and market demand basically are the combined total supply, which means total production, and total demand in the market. Easy, we good? Can we move on? Okay. Now, where the market demand and market supply of wheat will be equal, that will be your equilibrium price. We know this, right? So where the market demand, where the product market supply and market demand are equal, that would be its equilibrium price. So let's assume it's 100 rupees per kg, right? Let me write down the full thing, right? So that is 100 rupees per 100 rupees per, my writing tab is still being problematic, right? 100 rupees per kg, right? Easy. Okay. Now what you will do, now we are about to look at the firm. Now we are about to look what happens in the case of firm. Now you will extend this equilibrium price, right, to the right graph, which is for the firm. And then you'll draw a straight line like this. You'll draw a straight horizontal line or graph like this, right? Now, why is this demand curve? I explained to you before as well. So this demand curve is straight horizontal line, and there is a special name that we give to this type of demand curve. What was that? It's known as perfectly elastic demand. What do we call it? Perfectly elastic demand. You must have studied this in your AS economics, where we said that perfectly elastic demand curve is a straight horizontal line, which basically shows us what? Which shows that you can sell any quantity at this price. So if P1 is the price, then you can sell whether you're selling 50 units or you're selling 100 units or you're selling 150 units, right? The total price will stay the same. The price will not change. It will neither increase, neither decrease. And at this price, you can sell as much quantity as much you want to, right? And when is the demand curve like this? When is the demand curve for any product like this, which means it's perfectly elastic? It is when there is a lot of competition in the market. So when there's a lot of competition in the market, a lot of firms that are producing identical products, as we discussed in perfect competition, that is when the demand for one firm will be perfectly elastic. Now, let me give you a real life example. So you must have gone to farmers market in your own countries, right? Now, we also have one in Pakistan, right? So what happens basically, right? What happens basically is that, right, that there are vendors having stalls right next to each other, right? So when you go to the farmers market to buy things like fruits, vegetables, or anything, you see vendors having their stalls right next to each other. And that is where each vendor has perfectly elastic demand. What it basically means that the prices are already set by the market forces, prices are fixed. So if each kg of wheat is selling for 100 rupees, no single firm can charge higher than that, right? Because obviously the very next stall is right next to it. So why would I pay even 105 rupees for a kg of wheat when I know that the next vendor is selling for 100 rupees? Are you getting me? So when there's a lot of competition in the market, so one particular firm will have perfectly elastic demand curve, which will be like a straight horizontal line. Is this making sense? And if you remember, just for the sake of your revision, perfectly elastic demand curve value of PED, I mean, it's not relevant in A2, but just for the sake of your revision, it has infinity, right? The value is infinity, right? Easy. We good on this, students? Can you move on? Okay. Now, what you need to know that this is your price at which you will sell each unit of the good, which is kg, right? And perfect, very good, Zain. And then this is also your marginal revenue. This is also your marginal revenue. So the straight line, the straight demand curve, in your perfect competition shows you the price, right? It's showing you the price. It's also your marginal revenue. Now let's spend a moment to understand what marginal revenue was. Marginal revenue is the increase in revenue due to sale of one more unit of the good. Do you remember? I said, what is marginal revenue? Marginal means additional, and revenue is basically how much money you generate, right? How much money you generate. So marginal revenue was change in revenue. So this delta, the triangle that I've made, is basically your change in revenue, right? So change in revenue divided by change in output. Change in output. Easy? You good on this? Okay. Now this being said, students, think about this. If you sell the first unit, let me give you a very simple example that why is marginal revenue the same as price? You must be thinking, why is marginal revenue same as price? So we have just seen through the demand curve that every unit will sell for how much? Each unit of the good will sell for 100 rupees. So if this is your units, if these are your units, this column on the left shows you how many units of the good you are selling. And on the right, you have the price, right? Then, and if the price is staying constant, right? 100 for each, 100 rupees or $100, right? 100 rupees for each unit of the good that you're selling. Now you tell me, how much will be the marginal revenue for each additional unit? How much will be the marginal revenue, students, for each additional unit? Wouldn't that be 100? Wouldn't that be 100, right? Because every time you sell one additional output, one additional unit of the good, your revenue rises by 100. Yes or no? Yes or no? Does it make sense? Because price is staying constant. So if price is staying constant, then your marginal revenue will be the same. However, this is not the case everywhere. It is only the case. Huda, did you get this? It is only the case when your demand curve is a straight line, straight horizontal line like this. Otherwise, in other market structures like monopoly and so on, perfect, we will see that marginal revenue will decrease. Why will it decrease? I'll also show you the calculation for that. You will understand. But for now, we have understood that marginal revenue is the change in revenue. So that's why I've written delta revenue and delta revenue. So change in revenue due to change in output. So every time you sell one additional unit of the good, it will always be sold for 100 rupees. So that means that each unit of the good that you sell will contribute 100 in terms of your revenue. So that's why marginal revenue is also the same. So this is your price, the straight horizontal line, and it's also showing you the marginal revenue. Then two other graphs that you need to add over here. One would be of marginal cost. Marginal cost graph is a J-shaped graph that goes like this, right? And the other graph that you need to add to this is your ATC. Do you remember? ATC is a U-shaped graph that goes like this. Okay. Now, here's one thing that's important before we move forward. Now, what is, if you remember, we just, in the last one or two classes, we completed our discussion about the types of cost. In that, I explained, and some of you missed, that's why I'm explaining you again. In that, we said that your marginal cost and ATC, what's the relationship between these two? That's a very important thing, right? So the shape, we are already clear that your marginal cost will be a J-shaped graph. So it will go like this. And your ATC is U-shaped graph like this, right? Your ATC is U-shaped graph like this, right? Okay. Now, what you need to understand that marginal cost will always pass from the lowest point of the ATC. Let me make it for you and then I'll explain you. Marginal cost always passes from the lowest point of the ATC. Why so? Right? There was a complete explanation that we discussed, so we'll not go in that detail now. But always remember that your marginal cost cannot pass from this point. So this marginal cost 1 is incorrect. How do we know it's incorrect? Because it's not passing from the lowest point of the ATC. This is not the lowest point of the ATC. Which is the lowest point? This is the lowest point, right? Because ATC is decreasing up till this point, ATC is decreasing up till this point, and then after this point, it starts to go up, right? Does make sense? So any marginal cost that doesn't pass from the lowest point of the ATC, let me draw another one, something like this. Again, marginal cost, the problem with marginal cost 2 and marginal cost 1 is that they're not passing from the lowest point of the ATC, therefore they are not correct. Marginal cost will always pass from the lowest point of the ATC. Is it making sense, students? We good? Okay. Now this is something that you remember. And once you get more practice of these graphs, you will be able to do it without any thought, right? Okay. Now think about this. Now comes in the main part. Now comes in the analysis part. Now, what was this? This was short run. So we are looking at the short run of perfect competition, where on the left, we have made the graph for the industry. On the right, we have made the graph for the firm. And I've explained you all the parts bit by like step by step. Now comes in the question. At what output level the firm maximizes profit? So what is the profit maximization? What is the profit maximization quantity of a firm? Who can tell me? What is the profit maximization quantity of a firm? Right. Right. Who can tell me? You remember we talked about this, right?
Sir, until the marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue.
Very good. Excellent, Preet. That's correct. That's correct, right? So if you remember in economic efficiency, when we we're talking about these different type of market structures, I did tell you that profit is maximized at the point where the firm's marginal revenue is equal to its marginal cost. So where the marginal, simply speaking, where the marginal cost graph of the firm will intersect with the marginal revenue, that will be your profit maximization quantity. Now let's go back and see where is that. Now the green line, the green curve is your marginal cost. The purple line is your marginal revenue. Where are the two? Where are the two intersecting? The two are intersecting, the green and the purple line are intersecting at this point. Now what you will do, you will first make a kind of a dot over there, and then you'll bring a dotted line down over here and you label it as QP. So QP would signify that this is your profit maximization quantity. This is your profit maximization quantity. Okay. Now you have to look at it carefully. Now, these dotted lines, this dotted line is cutting the ATC at this part. Where is this cutting the ATC part? So let's look at this one more time, because a lot of students get confused here. So I'll explain it one more time. Now we know that the profit maximization quantity for any firm, not only for perfect competition, by the way, for any firm, profit is maximized where the company's marginal cost is equals to its marginal revenue. Now, the green line marginal cost and the purple line marginal revenue are intersecting at this point. So I make a small dot over here. Then what I do next is make a dotted line and then extend it towards the x-axis to identify what quantity you will produce, right? So QP is the profit maximization quantity, right? This much you should produce. This can be 1,000 units. This could be 800 units, whatever it is, right? After this, what you need to do, you need to see where is this dotted line cutting with your ATC, the blue curve. This is the point where your profit maximization quantity is cutting with your ATC. Am I right with this or not? Now, what you will do next is that you will connect this point with your y-axis. You'll connect this point with your y-axis. Got it? What will this show you? This will show you that what is the ATC? What is the average total cost of producing each unit of the good? We already knew that the price was 100. We already know from our previous discussion that the market price for each kg of wheat we are talking about, right? So the market price of each unit of wheat is 100 rupees, right? Now this is 100, so price turns out to be 100, and this is your ATC. Now, is ATC lower than price or higher than price? Is ATC lower than price or higher than price? Who can tell me? Lower or higher? It is lower. Obviously, it's lower on the y-axis, exactly. Very good, Zain. So it will be anything less than 100. So you can just imagine. So let's imagine it's 80, right? Let's imagine it's 80. It could be anything, right? Less than 100. It could be 90, it could be 70, but obviously I will not have exact value. So let's say it's 80. Now, what is this showing us? This shows that each unit of wheat is selling for 100 rupees. It cost you approximately 80 rupees to produce each unit of the good, right? So 100 minus 80, what we were talking about the other day, that will be your profit per unit. Because what is profit per unit? Profit per unit is price, right? What is your profit per unit? So profit per unit is your price, minus ATC. Profit So your profit per unit